Okay, welcome everyone to South Huron's Council chambers tonight. Is there a bit of an echo in the microphone there? So we'll call this meeting to order and we'll ask everyone to make sure their cell phones are turned off or on mute. And I'll ask everyone to rise for O Canada, please. Again, welcome everyone to South Huron Council meeting tonight, and we welcome those in the gallery, our staff, and the members of the public who are tuning in from home. Welcome to all. And we'll begin this meeting now with our land acknowledgement. As we gather, we are reminded that the municipality of South Huron is situated on Treaty 29 land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history and home to First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people today. As a community, we have a responsibility to honor and respect this territory's significance for the Indigenous peoples who lived and continue to live upon it and whose practices and spiritualities were tied to the land and continue to develop in relationship to the territory and its other inhabitants today. In the spirit of reconciliation and truth, we acknowledge the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee peoples on whose traditional territory we are meeting. Thank you, everyone. We'll move to item number 2 on our agenda. CEO Ms. Masuo-Carlson, please.
That South Huron Council approves the agenda as presented.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, second by Councillor Oak. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof from members of council. Are there any disclosures at this time? Councillor Neeb, go ahead, please.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor Finch. There are 2 items. Item 5.2, the South Huron Arts Center. The general nature being that I am the chair of the Cultural Collective, a partner organization with the South Huron Arts Center. So I'll step out of the meeting during this delegation. Second item is item 9.4.5, titled Alex Wolf, Deputy Clerk, appoint engineer for a new municipal drain, Ford and Neeb. The general nature being that the new proposed municipal drain, Ford and Neeb, is part of my parents' farm. So I will step out of the meeting during that item.
Thank you very much. And you made the declarations before the clerk, have you?
Yes, I have.
Great. Thank you very much. We move on. And we have no presentations, but we certainly welcome our friend Chris Rogue from the here in Perth Catholic District School Board. Welcome, Chris.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to speak to you folks today. It was a pleasant surprise. I have to say it's the first time that a municipality has reached out to us to come in to address you and to speak about education issues. So I wanted to, on behalf of the board, thank you very much for that kind invitation. So it's 10 minutes. And when I was asked to put together education issues in the sector in 10 minutes, I thought, well, that's a challenge. It'll be the biggest challenge I'll have all week. So I'm going to get right to it. If we could go to the next slide, please. So just a little bit about myself. I'm the Director of Education. That means I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the board, as well as the Chief Education Officer of the board. I have about 30 plus years of experience in education. This today actually marks my 12th year as Chief Executive of a school board in Ontario. So I'm one of the longest serving executives in Ontario. I come from mostly a secondary school background. I was a secondary school principal, superintendent of education, as well as a mathematics and English teacher before that. Next slide, please. I wanted to introduce you to the elected officials for our area that may be of interest to you. The trustee representing South Huron is trustee Sue Muller from the Mount Carmel area. The chair of the board is Mary Helen Van Loon, who represents St. Mary's in West Perth. And the vice chair of the board is Amy Cronin, and she represents Huron East, Perth East, and North Perth. And I would encourage you at any time, of course, to reach out to these fine folks. They're very receptive to invitations for information or to engage in dialogue. Fantastic and dedicated group of trustees. We have 5 trustees on the board, so it's a small board. So coming to speak to a council of this size makes me feel right at home. It allows for a tremendous amount of, I think, honest dialogue. Our trustees are, how would I put it? They're prepared, they're diligent, and they acknowledge the good work of staff, but they do fantastic work on behalf of the ratepayer. So I'd encourage you, if my presentation in any way falls short, reach out to these fine folks. They'd be more than happy to talk to you. Next slide, please. So just some quick facts about the board. We're about 4,500 students, so we serve all of Huron and Perth County. It's kind of difficult to determine the exact number of students that are in the South Huron area, but it's about 18% elementary and secondary. The secondary students attend St. Anne's in Clinton and receive busing from all points in the South Huron. We have about 450 employees. And again, that's plus or minus. That's not including some of our casual staff, et cetera. And that's not just full-time staff. So it's a bit of a ballpark, gives you an idea of the size of the organization. We have about an $80 million budget. 80% of that, roughly speaking, is tied up in staff. So it's tied up in salary, benefits, et cetera, and so on. The other remaining 15 million or so is tied into all of the other costs, capital, program, transportation, et cetera, and so on. Next slide, please. Wanted to brag a little bit, if I could, about the district. A few years ago, we entered into a strategic planning process, if I could put it that way. And we came up with a strategic plan, and it was the desire of the trustees at the time to position our school board in the top 20% of the province with respect to student achievement. At the time, we were sort of in the middle of the province, probably in the sort of right in the kind of 50th, 45th percentile of the province. And I'm pleased to report back to council that schools, including the schools in South Huron, now we positioned ourselves in the top 20% in the province in 3 years. And that's 2 of those years, by the way, were during COVID. So we're very proud of the work of our families, of our students, and of our staff who have helped to position our students and our families in a good way. Our graduation rate for the district is about 94%. Again, it's an exceptionally high graduation rate if you take a look at relative to the rest of the province. And 85% of our students achieve at level 3 or higher on the provincial literacy test. And that's fairly recent data. That's data just that will be published very soon. From a technology perspective, we're quite proud to report all of our students in our district have Chromebooks. It sounds like, and it's not just about the Chromebooks. I need to say that what's important about the Chromebooks is it gives students access to learning 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, when they need it and if they need it. And one of the reasons why this was an important initiative was, in fact, COVID. Right at the time of COVID, we had to move to online learning and toggle to that system. And this allowed us to be in a position where we were able to provide learning to students all the time. Now, we don't lean that heavily on it. We're also, aware of, screen time issues and those sorts of things. So it's a tool. It's a tool in the toolkit. But we're happy to report that we do have a technology all the time for all of our students. Next slide, please. So our strategic plan, which wraps up next year, and the QR code in the slide deck will take you to the strat plan if you so choose. We have really 3 areas of emphasis. One, of course, is Catholic faith formation in the district. So our intention is to ensure that all programming at all times is sought out through the lens of our Catholic faith. And that with respect to student achievement, we're paying extra close attention to mathematics and literacy. And again, the mathematics and literacy goals, which we set out, were an attempt to get us into that upper echelon of the province. And again, happy to report that that's where we're at. Next slide, please. So what's on the horizon? These are things we're paying attention to. Some of them are stickier than others. The first is with respect to staffing shortages. This is obviously a worldwide phenomenon, and certainly a North America, Canadian, and an Ontario phenomenon. We're experiencing the same staff shortages that everybody is, and that's of course putting some pressure on everything from cleaning our schools to operating the administration of the schools to providing teachers in a timely fashion for our students and all the services associated with education. Post-pandemic mental health issues. This is this is in the wake of the pandemic. I would say probably the most important issue that's arisen in our schools is the issue of the impact on mental health on our students. It's been whether it's attendance, which is really manifesting itself. So one of the objective measures of how mental health is manifesting itself in our schools is around attendance. So whether it's student attendance or staff attendance, all of these things have been impacted by the pandemic. Recent changes to the reading and mathematics program. You may have heard in the news that there are changes to the way we're going to be delivering, in particular, the reading program. All of that is rolling out this year, as well as changes to the mathematics program. So there's going to be a fair bit of upheaval, I would say, in the education system in the next little while. I don't think on the ground folks are going to notice it, but behind the scenes, you need to know there's a ton of work going on in terms of training for staff to ensure that we're giving our students the best reading and mathematics teaching strategies that we can. Supporting workforce needs, the province has been very clear that one of its goals is to make sure that, and this is in part related to the staffing shortage, but making sure the school system is modernized so that we're providing the appropriate training, trades training in particular, so that is associated with apprenticeship training, but also training for students into the world of work, and alternative pathways to traditional pathways, which might be like university or college. Not that those aren't important, those are important pathways as well, but we want to make sure that we're providing all the best options that we can, most number of pathways possible for our students. The second last bullet is around the potential for labor unrest. I just bring this to your attention in that if you're reading the news or listening to the news on the way to the council meeting today, you may have heard that that one of the teacher unions in the province is already recommending a strike mandate for the fall. So I think that's something everybody in the sector is paying attention to. You'll remember last year that education workers through CUPE were on strike, and there was a whole set of strikes that occurred across the province. Provincial bargaining, by the way, started a year ago. And so really through the course of the year, we had the CUPE unrest, but not much happened in the way of teacher collective agreements over the summer and throughout all of last year, as a matter of fact. So that's bubbling up and coming to a head. So I would expect that there may be, it's not for sure, obviously, but when ETFO, which is a very large teacher union, announces that they're going to that they're going to recommend strike action to their members, that's giving you a sense of the temperature. And all of that will be kickstarted probably mid-September. So you can expect strike votes, and those things will start to kick. That'll all be in the news, and that'll raise, of course, some anxiety across the district with respect to labor. And for us, the exciting thing is we're getting into our strategic plans wrapping up in 2024. So it's the end of this school year. So we'll be in the process of kickstarting the next round of planning for our upcoming strategic plan. That's an exciting process for our constituents and for our community. And we hope that the entire community, including the community of South Huron that we serve, participates in that exercise, and we can bring together a good plan that represents the interests of our ratepayers. And that, Mr. Mayor, is my presentation. Happy to answer any questions if there are any, if that's appropriate.
No, that's terrific. Great presentation for sure. Are there any questions from members of council? Councilor Oak, go ahead, please.
Yes, thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Chris, for the presentation. Just a question, any changes to the schools in South Huron as far as we've got 2 schools at this point in time? Any changes to sizes or anything relating to the schools in South Huron?
Excellent question. So in terms of size, we've just, so last January, we reached out to a firm to do a demographic study of the district. So they're going to put together a 5 to 10 year accommodation plan. So that report's not out yet. But what I can tell you is it probably mirrors your own plans for the district. So whatever you're seeing in terms of population growth, whatever plans, the reports that you've received, it'll match that. So you can pretty much lay that over top of how our school growth and any changes to the schools. We're not expecting much growth. Obviously, Mount Carmel doesn't look like it's going to grow a whole lot. So we are expecting flat enrollment there. Precious Blood here in Exeter will likely see over the next 5 years some growth, but it'll be moderate. So we're not seeing an explosion in terms of Catholic school enrollment growth in South Huron, but it should be flat or growing.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, we do have a lot of growth happening within South Huron boundaries, so we'll look forward to that growth, both with the young people and others moving to the area. Any other questions from Deputy? Go ahead.
Thank you for the presentation. You talked about changes to math and reading. There's been some discussion about the writing being changed or brought back, or is that in the works for this year, or when will that start, or do you know?
Yep, I do. Thank you for the question. So, in particular, cursive writing, is the hot button topic. It's one of those things that if you'd asked me 20 years ago whether we'd have a contentious item around cursive writing, I would have said probably not ever. But it is actually a very contentious item, and it was quietly removed from the curriculum during the 2000s, and now it's coming back. So that will be reintroduced but what we haven't done yet is we haven't worked with our teachers with respect to the training that they're going to need to do. The fact is actually that most of our teachers are not expert cursive writers, as an example. So that's on the cursive writing side. On the writing side itself, not a lot of changes in terms of the methodology. So I'd be talking about cursive writing, argumentative writing, rhetorical writing, speech writing. Most of those things are not changed into the curriculum. I'm not sure if that answers your question. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Dietrich, go ahead, please.
I would just like to make a comment, Chris, there on how you handled the pride flag issue.
Mhm.
And one other question, who sets out the discipline for the kids like in the school year or whatever? I hear some pretty wild stories, so.
Yeah, okay, thank you for the question. And thank you for the support for board. On the student behavior, discipline, and safety issue, you should know, that topic last year has been front of mind to the board around the board table. So we entertained a rather substantial change to board policy and administrative procedure regarding student behavior, discipline, and safety in an attempt to, I think, tighten things up a little bit. What I think, if at a high level, I think what happened at least in our district was when we got through COVID, we had 2 years where students really weren't in school. And so when they came back to attempting to come back into a regular school day, I fully expected we would just hit it and run. Like that was honestly my expectation, but actually that transition back did not go according to plan. So we've had to spend a little bit of time trying to get them back into just the good habits that come along with being a good student. And however, I think also when they came back, we were more in the mode of let's try and get our students back in the school, right? Like we just wanted them to come back. And so I think some of the issues around student discipline were probably maybe looser than because we wanted them to come back. But I think what we're going to need to do this year, and we started last year, is to tighten things up a little bit. So the first step is through policy and procedure. Last spring, board passed a new policy on student behavior, discipline, and safety, along with new procedures for schools. And that will be introduced in the fall, and the policy kickstarts in September. You're welcome.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for Chris? Oh, great presentation. Thank you very much for attending, and we look forward to you coming again in the future.
Thank you very much for having me. Take care.
Very well. So, Ms. Masu Collison, please.
That South Huron Council receives the delegation from the Huron-Perth Catholic School District School Board as presented by Chris Rohrig.
And the mover, Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Denemy. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? And that carries a 7. Thank you. And move on to 5.2, and Mr. Neve, thank you for being excused, and we welcome Deb Homuth. How are you, Deb? Deb's no stranger to South Huron, so we welcome you and please proceed whenever you're ready.
Merch, everybody. I actually brought a list of the programs we're offering in the fall, so I'll give those to Rebecca if you're interested. So I want to talk to you about the South Huron Arts Center tonight. Next slide, please. Very briefly, I want to talk about where it came from, what our primary goals are, what the participation has been like to date, what our online reach is about, our financial status, and then make a request of you. Next slide, please. So although the idea was around earlier and shared with Chief Administrative Officer Best when he was in the role, the pandemic hit and the idea was shelved, and it wasn't until 2022, January 2022, that we formed the board. And since then, things have been very busy. We opened our doors last September thanks to the Exeter Lions Club, who very generously, actually under Councillor Mark, I want to keep saying, Denhamy's leadership, we received funds to start the Arts Center. Because there was no municipal space, which very often is where an arts center is housed in a community, is in a municipal space, but there wasn't one. So we were searching for a space and approached the Lions Club about the Lions Youth Center. It's busy, which is a good problem to have, but not really enough room for an arts center. The Exeter United Church opened their doors and said, you can use the church. And then the first year, rent free. So we operated last year from September until early June, and want to share with you those participation rates. And right now, registration is open for the fall. Programs begin in September. We have 29 fall programs that we're offering for people from preschool to seniors. Next slide, please. So what are our goals? We want to be an extension of the existing physical recreation programs in South Huron, which is a different approach to an arts center than many municipalities or towns and so on have. We want to be a dynamic, accessible hub for the arts. And so it's really about creative art forms of all kinds and for all ages, regardless of income, race, gender identification, faith, ability, all of that. We operate on a break-even financial model, so each class has to fund itself. So we pay our instructors and of course provide materials and resources, and the registration fee has to cover that. But what's unique about art programs is they aren't classes of 40 people, they're classes of 6 or 8 or 10 people, because instructors work with each individual and they're creating things, and that's very different than having great big classes that you might have in other kinds of programming. Our goal is to bring people together, young and old, have them work side by side, to imagine, to foster creativity, to make our community healthier and stronger, and to help children and youth build life skills, such as communication, problem solving, social skills, self-expression, fine motor skills, and also this idea that when you start something, see it through to completion, which since the pandemic has been a real issue for lots of students in schools, and maybe even adults too. Next slide, please. So what's our reach like? This shows you by our 3 terms, fall, winter, spring. We have Facebook and Instagram pages. Thanks very much to Angie Tripp, who's in the gallery tonight, does all of that work. Angie also creates newsletters that go out online. And so over last year, over 1,900 people opened the newsletters that are published about 5 times during the year. And then we had more than 18,000 visits to our website since we started last September. Next slide, please. So in our very first year of operation, we had 37 classes that we offered and more than 500 people participated. Next slide, please. We applied for grants and donations, and that includes the startup funds from the Exeter Lions Club. And then we have registration fees. And so we finished our year with about $3,800. Next slide, please. So the challenge is to cover our operating costs. And by that, we mean things like rent. So in the first year, the church provided the facility for free. And now we're required to pay rent and also utilities and also insurance. So the deal is that each participant and instructor must be fully insured for us to be able to use the facility. Everything happens at the website, registration. That's where we advertise our programming. So we're not in the business of printing things normally at all. And so all of those things cost money. We need to do promotion. And then there are just general things that you have to pay for when you're trying to operate an arts center. And so our annual operating costs are $7,000, and that doesn't include equipment. So that doesn't include purchasing a new pottery wheel or purchasing paintbrushes or any of that, or paying for instructors. So just to open the doors to run the thing before the first person registers, it's about $7,000 is what it will cost us. Next slide, please. So the board considered obviously, how do we cover the $7,000? We've applied for several grants, and grants are wonderful, and we've had a good success rate at 50% success rate for our applications, which is great. But grants generally, and I would say mostly, almost always, do not cover operating costs. So foundations, grant providing organizations like to cover a new project and the equipment that might be needed for the new project, as opposed to paying for rent. So we approach service clubs, and 2 service clubs have responded positively for our second year. The Rotary Club providing $500, but they didn't want it to go to operating costs. They wanted it to go to preschool art tables, and the Optimist Club, and they said yes, for this year only, they would help us with a $500 donation towards operating costs. And so service clubs, very much like grant providing organizations, are keen to fund new projects or new pieces of equipment, things that are, you can take pictures of, sort of, those kinds of things, which is important and we want. It's just hard to cover the operating costs. And so a percentage of each registration fee, a small percentage, goes to operating costs. But the reality is that if you increase the registration fees to cover all of the operating costs, the programs are too expensive and no one will sign up. So it's a catch-22, and the Art Center closes because you can't nobody registered for the classes, right? So you can't run a class for several $100s and then nobody signs up. So that would be, that'd be a great way to cover operating costs, but the reality is it shuts the Art Center down. So we thought perhaps there's a way to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the municipality to help us with some kind of idea that on the long term, each year for the next 5 years, there's something that would go towards operating costs, that sort of memo of understanding. So yes, we'll continue to seek all other forms of funding, grants and service clubs for sure, but you can't go every single year to the service clubs because they have other things they need to do too. So we are seeking ongoing support in some form from the municipality, similar to support provided to other recreation programs, similar in the sense to other communities and municipalities where a space is provided, generally that's the most common model, often for $1 a year, that sort of thing. Next slide, please. So why does that make sense? Well, certainly South Huron has a long history of providing support through council to community recreation, including costs of spaces for sure, subsidizing recreational programs, that sort of thing. The work of the Art Center promotes the priorities of council. That's what we're a living example, I think, of what it is you're hoping to do as a council. The focus on youth for certain, inclusivity and attracting people to the community. The Art Center is a hub and it's a home for the arts. So it's an umbrella organization. So it's a place that the Cultural Collective, that Aaron chairs, or Counselor Neeb, sorry, chairs. It's a home for South Huron Community Theatre. It's a home for Art Around Town. So all of these organizations, and funding one, you fund all, in other words, because all of them make their home there. And each time a new community arts organization comes to life, we invite them to be part of the Arts Center, to make that their home, to meet there, to offer their programs there. So in funding one, you would fund all. There is no space available in the municipality, municipal space that is. We understand that. That was my very first conversation when I sort of wrote this idea on paper a few years ago now. If there were, perhaps, the whole relationship would be different. Our annual operating costs are $7,000, and we believe we can hold the line on that moving forward in conversation with the United Church, that they're not interested in making money off the Arts Center. They're interested in using their facility, which is very underused currently. So the memorandum of understanding would provide, in our imagination, we are an art center, so creativity and imagining is our thing, but we think the first stop would be the Vitality Fund. We applied the first year and received funds. We applied this year and didn't because there were other priorities, including the 150th anniversary of the community. So we understand that, but in the years that the Vitality Fund can't provide operating funding, the notion would be, in our creative thinking, that the municipality would top it up to the $7,000. Next slide, please. So in summary, this is a shared community success story. I think you should be proud to have the Art Center in the community. I think it does attract people to the community. It provides something for lots of people to do regardless of age and income. And it's not for the town of Exeter, it's for the whole municipality. Not only does it provide something for participants to do, it provides a way for people with talents and skills to share it with other people. And I think that's really important. And council for several years have supported the Playhouse. You do support the arts. We understand that. This is a different, although this is the arts, this is about regular people, not professional performers, for instance, participating in the arts, but about everybody. Last year, we had 250 school children come through the program in the spring. They came to the Arts Center to participate in clay and painting classes, and for $5 a student they came. The schools really liked that idea because it meant every child could come, regardless of ability and income, because $5 a cup of coffee sort of approach. If we had charged them to include operating costs, those 250 school kids would not have come. So that's also important in a rural community, that we support schools, because rural schools, it's hard for rural schools to do everything for everyone, right? It's hard to be an expert in every area, and arts very often is an area in schools that it's difficult to attract expertise. So we can flesh out, we can enrich what schools are doing. And the kids were wonderful, and what they produced was terrific. I think we exemplify your priority around youth and partnerships and inclusivity. I think you can point to the Arts Center and say, this is our municipal arts center, and it does all of those things, and it does it well. And with a relatively small monetary investment, a sort of partnership on the longer term, without taking on any responsibility for the day-to-day operations, I think we can all see that it will succeed and continue on the longer term. Next slide, please. So that's our website. I'd love it if you went. Here's a list of the 29 programs that we're offering in the fall that maybe somebody in your family might be interested in taking. So fall classes are open for registration. We hope we can cover our operating costs in one form or another with your help before we move too far into the new year. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, great job, Deb. Well done. Any questions for Deb? Is there any other arts center anywhere nearby, Deb? Anything similar to what you've got right now?
There's a Grand Bend Arts Center. Oh, all of a sudden I feel so loud. They they did the Poppy project, they do the mural on the beach house. It's an emphasis on clay and visual arts, a very different approach than what we do here. That's the nearest one. We're unique in the sense that we do visual arts, music, dance, drama, traditional crafts, cooking, and self-care, teaching people about that. That's very different. A lot of art centers, Bayfield runs a version of an art center where they bring in professional artists in the summer to teach classes. So people would holiday in the Bayfield area to take a class from a professional artist in the summer, that approach. So this is a very different approach to running an art center in the sense of many decades ago, there used to be night school programs at high schools. I don't know if anybody here remembers them. And lots of people would take classes lots of adults would take a class for interest at night at the local high school. When all of that kind of thing ended, there was really a void in smaller communities to take these kinds of things, you know? So we went to visit other art centers that are similar size of municipality. And that's where we really learned about how municipal spaces are very often provided in this $1 a year idea. But we're unique. We're really a place where you come to do something new in a time where people spend way too much time online. It's the reality of all of our lives, where people remember to use their hands again, to be creative, to imagine, and to work with others. I walked into a guitar class last fall, and it was learn to play the guitar. The youngest student was 11 and the oldest was 72, which is also by itself a very interesting idea, where people of all ages learn beside each other. We've gotten away from that too. So I think we're trying to do lots of good things, but we are unique in terms of art centers. Also, this idea that we're an umbrella organization for the arts, where other, arts initiatives in the community come underneath us and have their home there. And we do this together. So we make sure they're represented on the board. They sit on the board, they make decisions. It's like running a cooperative, I suppose, in some ways. And that's unique too, I think.
Okay, great. And as far as the church goes, you have access to the entire church. Is that
Yes.
correct? So it's not just one room you're looking
Right,
at.
the whole church.
Whole church.
Yep.
Okay.
And the church has been a great partner so far, extremely supportive. And we sort of moved in and took over, and they still run, Sunday things on Sunday, obviously, and we don't. So Sunday's their day. And then occasionally they'll have an event or something on another day, and we make sure that that's priority one. But generally, we use the facility much more than the church actually does anymore. So, and that's, I guess, just a way churches are going a bit in this 2023, I think.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that you've got a very old historic building that you're putting new life into.
Yes.
Is that a fair statement? Okay, great. Any other questions for Deb?
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Deb. Well done. Appreciate that. All right, Ms. Masuda Carlson, if you were the recommendation, please. And thank you.
The South Huron Council receives a delegation from the South Huron Arts Center as presented by Deb Homas.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Denby, seconded by Councillor Oak. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 6. Thank you very much. And we'll move right along. Welcome back, Mr. Neeb. No public meeting, 7.1, Ms. Masuda Carlson.
That South Huron Council adopts the minutes of the public meeting of July 10th, 2023, and the regular council meeting of July 17th, 2023, as printed and circulated.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Denby, seconded by Councillor Dietrich. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. Number 8, please.
That the agenda packages, minutes, and or reports of the following committees and or boards be received as presented to council. Huron County Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan Oversight Committee, draft minutes of May 24, 2023, and mapping task. AuSable Bayfield Conservation Authority, minutes of June 15th, 2023. Exeter Rodeo minutes of June 28th, 2023, and July 26th, 2023. Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, draft minutes of June 20th, 2023, and agenda package of July 17th, 2023. And Centralia Community Advisory Committee, draft minutes of July 27th, 2023.
And a mover, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. 8.6.
That South Huron Council receives the draft minutes of the July 20th, 2023 and July 26th, 2023 Fire Services Advisory Committee meeting. And that South Huron Council approve the recommendation of the Fire Services Advisory Committee and support the use of the Exeter and Dashwood fire stations by external emergency services employees, OPP and EMS, as approved by the fire chief. And that the following use parameters for use of the Exeter and Dashwood fire stations be adhered to. Only employees of approved external emergency services be granted access to the facility. The use of the facility to be for the purpose of breaks and rest periods. The use of the facility cannot displace or impact the regular operation of the fire service.
Is there a mover, please? Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Denemy. Discussion. Councillor Oak, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wondering if we could split this recommendation into two. With the first part as a separate recommendation, if that would be okay
Okay.
with the mover and seconder.
I'll just read that motion then. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Denemy, that South Huron Council receives the draft minutes of the July 20th, 2023 and July 26th, 2023 Fire Services Advisory Committee meeting.
Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder on that. Is there any discussion on that part of the motion? Not seeing. Call the question. All in favor? And that motion, part of the motion carries. Ms. Masook also.
That South Huron Council approve the recommendation of the Fire Services Advisory Committee and support the use of the Exeter and Dashwood fire stations by external emergency service employees, OPP EMS, as approved by the fire chief. And that the following use parameters for use of Exeter and Dashwood fire stations be adhered to. Only employees of approved external emergency services be granted access to the facility. The use of the facility to be for the purpose of breaks and rest periods. The use of the facility cannot displace or impact the regular operation of the fire service.
And is there a mover for that? Councillor Denemy, is there a seconder? Councillor Oak? And Ms. Masook also?
Well, because that was a split.
Sorry,
the
that's
same.
right. Sorry, my mistake.
Yeah.
Yes, we have the same two mover and seconder. Sorry, that's my error. Very well. Any discussion on this? Councillor Neeb, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Finch. One of my concerns with the recommendations is liability with access, as the OPP and EMS are not South Huron municipal employees, but are externally contracted or are provided by the upper tier government. I'm concerned about the liability with that. While I understand and value partnerships and strengthening any working relationship with an agency that works in the municipality, I'm reminded of the commitment that Western Region OPP Chief Superintendent John Kane said in 2018 at the groundbreaking ceremony for the Huron County-wide detachment. He stated, and I quote, that the closed offices in Wingham and Exeter would be replaced with smaller storefront policing offices. He further stated that this would provide an area, and I quote, provide an area for the officers to go and meet the public in that community so that not everyone within Huron County would have to come to Clinton if they wanted to see an officer. So far, we've heard nothing from our partners in the OPP about opening up a storefront office that was committed to our taxpayers. As part of our contract with the OPP is responsible for providing its own space. When the detachment was closed, we communicated our concerns that there would be issues. I don't think that the municipality and the taxpayers should take on additional liability and allow this cost to be downloaded onto their property taxes twice. I think we also need to think about the long-term ramifications of council formally and legally providing blanket access to our fire halls without providing our chief with unconditional flexibility to say no. I think that ultimately it is the fire chief's prerogative and his alone to provide access on a case-by-case basis and not create any expectation or precedent that the municipality provides space for external emergency services. At this point, I would ask if I think it was the seconder would be willing at the, if council's in favor of removing and withdrawing this recommendation. Thank you.
Councillor Dennehy?
At this point in time, I think I would have to agree with Aaron.
So can you state your intention, please?
I would say that we remove that from the motion.
Very well, and thank you very much. And for procedure, Ms. Masuda Collison?
Under the procedural bylaw, that the mover and seconder in agreement can withdraw the motion prior to it being voted on.
Thank you. And do we do anything further with that then?
There's nothing further that needs to be done with that motion. I'm not sure whether there's another motion that may go on.
Councillor Oak, go ahead, please.
I guess, can we still make comments on the original motion?
Mrs. Collison?
I would say that you should be able to make comments on it, and then it can be withdrawn, and then council can decide if there's anything further to be done.
Okay, thank you.
Comment?
Yeah, I guess as chair of the Fire Services Advisory Committee that brought this to council, you know, the discussion that we had at the committee was it came out of a tour that we had as part of reviewing some of the stations as part of our due diligence for the you know, what might move forward down the road with our fire master plan and fire departments in South Huron. And so in one of the locations where we toured, which was the Milverton Fire Station, they great station, brand new station in the last few years. And one of the comments from the fire chief there was that they have a room similar to what we have in Exeter Fire Station, basically a training room that is, and from time to time, the OPP, they've got an arrangement where OPP use it to just to hook up to the Wi-Fi, to use the washroom, and basically that's more or less it. And the fire chief suggested that the residents were happy about the arrangement because of the visibility of the OPP in the community that they don't have otherwise, and it's brought more visibility to the OPP. So that was his comments, and that's where it was coming from. And it was also noted from our fire chief that he would like to see something like this happen as well, because there's many times, and you know, I've been a big proponent of not being happy of the OPP closing our detachment here, and was you know, wanting to explore other options, but that's not moving forward. And so the fire chief says that there's lots of times where they're having to wait for OPP to attend a scene of an accident or whatever, and his comments, and according to this fire chief as well, Fire Chief Hunter, I think, his comment was that that they're a lot closer a lot more of the time. And this doesn't replace a sub-detachment by any means that that was promised to us, but I'm not sure that that's ever going to happen. So that's where this recommendation came with support of our and recommendation from our fire chief that we explore this idea and see if it would work. So that's where my thoughts are on this recommendation.
Thank you. So at this point, anyone else want to have any comments? So at this point, how does it stand, Ms. Masuko? Since we're completely clear as not moving forward, is that correct?
I'll just confirm again, the mover, Counselor Neeb, seconder, Counselor Denemy. Did you still both want to withdraw this motion? Yes.
We've seen the acknowledgement. Yes, for the record. Okay, Counselor Vaughn, you have a comment? Microphone too.
I'm wondering if it's okay to make a comment.
Ms. Masu Carlson, is it?
Yes, because anytime until the vote, you can debate and then it can still be withdrawn. So
Okay.
proceed.
Okay. So okay. My first thought as I was reading through this motion was have the OPP themselves actually requested this accommodation. And I think from speaking with Counselor Neeb, Counselor Oak, and more that I read as I went through, it doesn't appear that the OPP requested this at any point. It's more what's happened as a result of the fire, the tours in the 3 cities. So I'm thinking this is not the first time this give them somewhat of a satellite office has kind of come up, if you will, around the council table. And I, like probably every other member of council, am disappointed that our dispatch front office is gone, and disappointed that promises alluded to in terms of giving us a satellite office have not come to the forefront. So I am in favor of withdrawing the motion at this time, but I also think that although AMO is next week and we are not necessarily prepared to bring this to a higher political level, that this is where we need to go. That we need to express that our public would like to have a greater presence, that our staff would like to have a greater presence in terms of a better response time. But I think it has to be coming from the top down within the political will and within the OPP upper echelon organization, that they would agree that something needs to be done. Now we have a gap and we haven't actually filled it yet. I would like to see a more formal arrangement in terms of if we're I don't know, not going to get any compensation for storefront, or are going to get some compensation for a storefront through reduction of fees, or just even a commitment of so many hours with boots on the ground in our face in the municipality. But I'd like to see a commitment rather than just us extending a hand out to allowing office space for nothing. I don't really go with the something for nothing kind of approach. So I just want to lay that on the table. I don't know that there's an opportunity to speak with any political members at AMO But I think really that's the way we should be going to address this need in our community.
Great, thanks very much, Councillor Vaughn. Deputy, go ahead, please.
I guess I'm gonna have my say here now too. I guess I look at it, I'm on the Police Services Board. And as far as the OPP bringing a station back here or even a room that they're gonna pay for, it's not gonna happen. It's never gonna happen. This has been going on for 5 years now. We understand what went on back then, but it's not gonna happen now. Our chief, we had our committee meeting. It was our chief that didn't have an issue with working and having the OPP there, because he said, when we go to a site, an accident or anything else, we're there working together. And he said, it's very good for us to have the OPP, maybe EMS, which I don't think they come very often, but the fire department all in one spot to have discussions. So he said that's why he likes the idea. As far as the OPP, they already have the high school. They have the hospital. It's not like they don't have anywhere to go. So I guess they're probably not going to bring any money forward. What I heard, it's not going to happen. So I guess that's my 2 cents on it. And I would like to see this move forward so they can use the fire stations, for the simple reason it brings them here. It will help keep them here to use their washrooms. So that's my thoughts on it. As far as South Huron, the presence of the OPP being in town, not just in town here, but also in Dashwood. So thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Well, if anyone's had a comment, I think it's probably appropriate for me to say something. I'll summarize a few things on. Deputy, we take the chair, please.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, thank you. So we have to remember, it was the OPP who unilaterally and without public consultation closed the Exeter and Wingham detachments and stated very clearly that the officers do all of their work from the car and have no need for an office. I disagree with that. However, I did say it was a foolish decision to CTV News when they asked me, and I stand by that comment. When we met with the OPP and Solicitor General at Roma in 2019 and 2020, I inquired what they will do for lunch and washroom breaks, and their quote was, "They have it all figured out and it was not our concern." Just before the Clinton office opened, the Huron detachment commander came to me and asked if they could use our town hall, this very building, but they would need their own secure space. I informed them that was not possible, but they were welcome to use the public washrooms at the rec centers, etc., like anyone else does. We have to remember, we pay over $2 million for policing per year now, and in the contract, it is the OPP's responsibility for providing facilities. Excuse me. We know they are using the hospital, as mentioned, as office space and had access to another private business at the south end of town. And this is in the last 3 years. Okay, plus they use the high school. Why is that no longer viable? The hospital's always needed extra security, so it makes sense for the OPP to work out of there. As for breaks, there are restaurants and stores that they can access. What is most important to remember is this is not our concern. That's what we were told. This is not our concern. So we need to fall back on that. Why not encourage using the ambulance base on Dashwood Road? We are eventually going to go to a county board, which should be supported at county facilities, since the ambulance sheds are staffed 24 hours a day. That is already done elsewhere. We've already said no at this council table in the past, and this is a slippery slope we are on. Let us not be naive to this discussion. OPP closes a perfectly good detachment, knowing full well they should not. We feel obliged and entertained in giving them a space, and they eventually make us responsible for facilities down the road. That, my friend, is how downloading begins, and we are wise enough to see it coming. We know the fire department are very busy, and we must protect them at all costs, as there are over $2 million in assets in that Exeter station alone. This includes in protecting the fire halls from outside influences such as the OPP or anyone else. Even as benign as it appears on the surface, it is not in our best interest to give permission at this council table, because once you give access, you cannot take it back. This recommendation is too vague for my comfort and terribly risky. If the fire chief wishes to allow bathroom access as a professional courtesy when he or another member of the fire department is at the station, that is his decision, since it is an operational decision and the chief is an occupier pursuant to the Trespass to Property Act. Having a policy at council in duplication and it overcomplicates the matter. I'm not in favor of carte blanche access at all, and I'll make that very clear. We've got to protect those fire halls to the best of our ability. And the OPP has access to huge provincial funding. Since I understand their yearly budget last year, it exceeded $1 billion. And the premier, as you know, is very pro-law enforcement. We cannot compare what happens elsewhere, such as in Perth County as mentioned, as an example, because they have 3 OPP stations, Mitchell, Listowel, and Stephenville, and the OPP does not police Stratford, St. Mary's, or Perth South. The road to conflict is paved with good intentions, and I will always stand with our firefighters to make sure there's never even a slight chance that they are compromised by any outside influence. And I'll ask each of you to do the same. It only takes one time for something to go sideways. And I'll also suggest too, as Councillor Vaughn was alluding to, that after all this dialogue, that we request a delegation. Sorry, am I still there? That we request a delegation with the Solicitor General and OPP Commissioner at the next Roma conference in 2024 to have them provide an update on the Community Policing Office as they committed to in November 2018. The OPP needs to be held accountable for what they've committed to. Thank you. Is there any further discussion? So that motion is at this point, Ms. Masood Coulson.
The motion has been withdrawn by the mover, Councillor Neeb, and the seconder, Councillor Denemy.
Thank you. We can move on to 9.1 then. Ms. Masood Coulson.
That South Huron Council received the report of Craig Metzger, Senior Planner, Repart Law Control Exemption, PLC 01 2023, GSP Group, Inc.
And do we have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Dietrich. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. Ms. Masood Coulson, 9.1.2.
That South Huron Council receives the report from Craig Metzger, Senior Planner, reapplication for deeming DB 02 2023.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Oak, seconded by Councillor Dietrich. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. And go to 9.2, 9.3.1.
That South Huron Council receives a report from Don Giberson, General Manager of Infrastructure and Development, Reconnecting Link Project Update, and that South Huron Council authorizes a scope change to include the replacement of storm sewers, sanitary sewers, water mains within the project limits.
And is there a mover, please? Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Denemy. Any discussion? Councillor Oak, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for the report, Don. The one question I had is it refers to the Alexander Street drain to remain. And just wondering how old that is, and if we're getting 90% coverage for that, why wouldn't we upgrade it at the same time?
Mr. Giberson, welcome. Oh, your microphone, please. Your microphone? Or your microphone?
Good evening, Mayor Finch, members of council. The rationale for the Alexander Street drain is off the top of my head, roughly 1998 in that range. So it's relatively new sewer. It has been videoed. The sewer is in reasonably good condition. We wanted to point out that when we're doing these reconstruction projects, we're not in the habit of just replacing absolutely everything. If it is in good condition and can remain, we want to save those funds. But if it is required to be replaced for any operational reasons, you are correct, Councillor Oak. It is subject to 90% grant funding. So we will assess it on both merits, the technical merits, but also if the funding is available.
Councilor Rowe, follow up?
Thanks, Don. I just think, it's 25 years old or so. And I just don't know what the lifespan is of because seems like nowadays some things don't last as long as the original intent. So, and the construction back in the 60s is a little different than the
Conversations with some of the businesses. We are in the very early stages, but we did reach out to some that would be impacted, and we have been contacted by others. So at a very early stage, we would typically start a project, or a contractor would start the project at the lowest end. Sewers are normally constructed from the bottom end up. So you would normally start at the Asalba River end and work your way north. The project is set up so that it can be a half and half project. 2 lanes of traffic will be maintained at all times. So similar to the project in Grand Bend, the one half of the road would have construction while the traffic is moved to the other half of the road. So storm sewer is predominantly on the east side of Main Street. So I would envision that's how a contractor would go at it. Start with storm sewer at the south end, work the way north. And when that side of the road is done, then flip the traffic around and then work your way up to Walper Street from there.
Thank you very much, Don.
Any other comments? Councilor Vaughn, go ahead, please, and then.
The BM Ross, sorry, work that was done and included in their report. They spoke about the sanitary sewer system, its condition, and they spoke a bit about the storm sewer system. So the water main, they didn't speak to that, but in your report, at least I don't think they spoke to that. In your report, you talked about the oldest section being 1965. And so my question is, why didn't BMROS speak to that? And also, too, is the oldest section of the water main, like how big is that section that actually needs replacing?
Through you, Mayor Finch. The straightforward answer on why BMROS did not include it in the report, they were not requested to review the water main infrastructure. Their assignment was to review the sewer videos and provide a recommendation on replacement of storm and sanitary sewers. So we did not engage them to make a recommendation on the water main. So that's coming from the staff based on age and condition of the water main. The second question about the limits, the 1965 section is from Thames Road North to Walper Street. There is an east-west section on the south side of the intersection that is roughly late 90s, early 2000s. And then south of that, there are sections of water main that date from the 70s. It's a bit of a hodgepodge, but the specifically your question about the oldest section, Thames Road up to Walper Street, 1965, ductile iron water main.
Okay. And so in terms of the suggested replacement for the 765, is that just the section, the older section from Thames Road North? Or is there also some south work and some east and west?
Through you, Mayor Finch. That estimate is to replace it for the entire length of the project. The rationale for that, with the age and the condition of the water main, It is ductile iron water main, which is subject to corrosion. And it is of the age where it would be considered for replacement. The biggest driving factor is the economics. We are replacing the entire road surface, which is 90% grant funded. This is the best opportunity to replace underground infrastructure at the most cost efficient method.
Okay. And also, I believe the request was to make an adjustment to the 2023 budget. And so we're almost at 2024. And so I'm just wondering about the rationale for the 2023 budget.
Through your information, no, the report is not requesting any amendment to the budget at this time.
I wonder where I got that impression.
It's requesting a scope change so that we can move to the next step, which would be a report back to council to do an adjustment or amendment to the engineering contract to expand their services to include this work. I would respond at this time about the questions about where the source of funding is going to be and how that's going to be determined. We are entering the 2024 budget discussions. That is the ideal place to discuss what the source of funding is going to be for this project, for these add-ons. And that will be the opportunity to look at if there are available funds in the reserves, capital replacement reserves to fund these. Are there savings from other projects like the Blackbush Line water main, which we saved $400,000 on the 2023 project, which would be a significant contribution to the water main on this project. So the 2024 budget process is the ideal method to analyze and review sources of funding, if there has to be any projects deferred, reprioritized, look at available funds from capital replacement reserves. So that is what staff are going to move forward with. That's our suggestion. Do it through the normal budgeting process. And they give council the ability to be involved in all the decisions on taking money from reserves, deferring other projects, reprioritizing, looking at savings. It's like the world is your oyster. You can look at anything that's there and we'll have lots of information available with the budget process.
Okay, thanks. That's great. Sorry I don't know where I got that impression that you were looking for a budget adjustment. So my apologies on that. What you have described sounds excellent.
Thank you. It was an obvious question though.
Great, thank you. Stroke, you had something.
Yeah, thanks. So I like the idea that we're, doing underground while we're doing the road construction here and one and done. Is there a timeline on the road construction for the grant that we're getting for the Connecting Lake grant? And then is there a timeline on this 90% funding for the sewer work? I guess that's, so I just wonder how long that 90% is available, or if that's just year by year, or just to make sure that our timelines, that everything would get done and qualify for those grants.
Just through you, Mayor Finch. Our current agreement is all of the work is required to be complete by March 31st, 2025. The current plan is to design the project, have a tender ready by the end of the year, go to tender as early as possible in 2024 and complete the work in the 2024 construction season. With the add-on of this work, it makes for a longer construction schedule, but that has been discussed with the consultant, and it is our collective opinion that it's still possible to complete the project to substantial completion, which is all underground and to base asphalt by the end of the construction season in 2024. And then the top asphalt would be done in the following year.
And so that's for the original project, the $3 million project, or the 90%, does it follow the same rules for the sewer funding?
Through you, Mayor Finch, then all of the connecting link funding and the entire project still falls on the same timelines. So if we do other work that's not related to the connecting link funding, the project completions are still following the same timeline.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you. So we have a mover and a seconder. No further discussion. Call the question. All in favor? That carries a 7. Thank you. 9.3.2.
The South Huron Council receives a report from Don Giberson, General Manager of Infrastructure and Development, reamendment to engineering servicing agreement for the Connecting Link project. And the South Huron Council authorizes an amendment to BM Ross and Associates Engineering Services Agreement to include geotechnical services from Englobe in the amount of $38,250 plus HST.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Dietrich. Any discussion? Call the question. Oh, Councillor Vaughn, did you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, I did. Regarding the second piece of the motion, the Englobe and the 38,000 plus, is this sub-consultant work a new type of work? This geotechnical service? I don't know that we've ever talked about anything that specific, or is this just something unique for this particular project?
Through you, Mayor Finch, no, geotechnical work is not new. This is a larger project, so the magnitude of the cost is greater than what we normally deal with. But we also have new provincial legislation, and it's significantly increasing the cost. We have made in Toronto legislation. It's the excess soil management regulation, which requires additional pre-construction investigations, more sampling, more lab work, a plan put in place. It's pretty much doubled our normal geotechnical cost. So normally council this would not be in front of council because the expenditures would be much lower and within the discretionary spending limits that staff have under the procurement bylaw. But these new requirements are significantly adding to the cost. So that's why you're seeing this. I would also say our procurement bylaw is quite dated and or outdated. And some of the limits in the bylaw make for a lot of extra work for staff and consumes council time for matters like this. So costs have changed dramatically through the pandemic. So we're seeing those kind of cost increases, and the limits that worked in 1965 don't work in 2023. So we have a very outdated procurement bylaw, and it causes a lot of different issues, such as our inability to hire local businesses, amongst other things. But these monetary limits, that would be the number one reason why you see a report in front of you tonight.
Councillor Oak, go ahead, please.
Thanks, Mayor. And so, thanks, Don, for your explanation. This extra 38,000, it's because of the extra work we're going to be doing now. It wasn't in the original tender to do this type of, geotechnical services in the original engineering quote. Or is it just because we've expanded the project? Because normally the tender is laid out of what all needs to be done, including this geotech services. Just wondering why it's now, or did other engineer firms have a higher amount in for geotech at the beginning and these guys didn't, so.
Through you, Mayor Finch. All our engineering services RFPs exclude sub-consultants for a number of reasons. We try to avoid the markup on sub-consultants. So the RFPs are set up so that the prime consultant is as part of their assignment is required to solicit these services, like obtain competitive proposals for the services, present them to the municipality, and then we can pay direct without a markup. So a lot of these services are smaller amounts of money. If we require a legal surveyor to work on a project and you have a couple $1,000, so that's not something that would be brought forward to council. Geotechnical services, just for example, our Victoria Street reconstruction project, we have those quotes in. Those quotes are a lot less than this, and they are within the spending limits that's authorized in the procurement bylaw. So this quote does include the excess soil for the expanded work. So this covers the full, whatever excess soil is generated from sewer work. But it was not included in the original engineering proposals, and none of the proposals that were submitted included the geotechnical. We specifically requested that be excluded, and then we would acquire those services after we selected the prime consultant.
Councilor Oak, go ahead, please.
Thanks for that, Don. And I agree that the procurement bylaw has to be reviewed, and I believe the CEO is our acting CEO is looking at that as we speak. Thank you.
Yes, concur. And any other comments then? Okay, not seeing. We have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further discussion, I will call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you, everyone. Moving right along, 9.4.1, please.
Okay. That South Huron Council receives a report of Stacey Jeffrey, Community Relations Manager, regarding the proposed update to corporate flag policy, community flagpole, and that the existing flagpole located in the downtown Parquet and Exeter be designated as the location of the community flagpole, and that staff proceed with matters related to the creation of a municipal branded flag and incorporate costs in the 2024 budget. And that council approves the amended corporate flag policy as presented, and that the necessary bylaw be brought back to council for the required 3 readings.
A mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Vaughn. Any discussion? Councillor Oak, go ahead, please.
Yeah, just comment. As far as the locations of the flagpoles in the actual policy, there is a flagpole as well at the Kirkton Woodham Pool that isn't in that list that's recently been put up. So, and just the existing flagpole that's at the Parquet, I guess the comment, I think I read that it's good yet for a few years before needing to be replaced. Is that correct?
Welcome, Ms. Jeffrey. How are you?
Good. Through you, Mayor
You're
Finch.
muted, I think. Oh, hang on. Maybe it's at our end.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
The box lights up. Go ahead. Are you there now?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Through you, Mayor Finch, Councillor Oak, thanks for noting the additional flagpole at Kirkton. So we will edit this draft before the 3 readings when it comes back to council. In terms of the existing flagpole in the parkette, so in discussion with the General Manager of Community and Emergency Services, that flagpole is in good condition. There's no need to replace it. So the options within that report were more for down the road if council wished to fly the national flag of Canada as well as the community flagpole. That would be the time then to explore options. There is no immediate need to replace the flagpole that's there now.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Dietrich, do you have your hand up? No, nobody else? Anyone else have any comment? Councillor Neeb, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Finch, and thanks to staff for the report and for the draft flag policy. I think it's important and unique to have a community flagpole that can be utilized by all in our community. It can demonstrate and celebrate the diversity within our community, but also celebrate and bring awareness to causes that are meaningful. I also think that engaging the public in the creation of a municipal flag is a fantastic idea. Having a flag that represents our municipality is important and can help showcase who we are to visitors, newcomers, and our residents. So other municipalities like Goderich and Stratford have their own flags, and I think it's time that South Huron has one as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Vaughn, go ahead, please.
Yes, I did read the policy on the national flag in terms of there is some ceremony that goes with you know, raising and lowering the flag. But I'm just thinking in terms of a community flag or a South Huron flag to sort of I'm not really sure I understand the need for that. Are we suggesting that if we have a flag like that, that a municipal flag, that we don't require a ceremony as we raise and lower that flag? It's not quite to be treated with the same level of respect. I'm just not sure why we're thinking about creating a municipal flag.
Okay, Ms. Jeffrey, did you want to comment to that at all? Just hang on while we turn up the mic here.
Through you, Mayor Finch, can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
Awesome. So yeah, Councillor Vaughn, I mean, there are the etiquette guidelines when flying the Canada flag. So really the premise to have the municipal branded flag was to, it should still be treated with the same respect, obviously, as the Canada flag. However, it's potentially puts less pressure on staff to have to constantly you know, lower and raise the Canada flag. It also, through conversation, having that municipal branded flag flying on the community flagpole really, you know, represents our community. And the hope is in creation of a municipal flag that'll fly there permanently. It does show how diverse our community is. And the hope is the creation of that flag will bring all of our diversity together.
Okay, thank you for that, Stacy. Also, just in thinking in terms of the potential municipal flag, there was a suggestion that this would come to the 2024 budget talks with a bit of a report in terms of what was involved and so on and so forth. And maybe even bringing in an outside third party who has expertise in creating such flags. And so I'm just thinking in terms of implementing specific community requests. Is it anticipated that if we pursue a municipal flag that this entire process will be slowed down? Or can we move forward with ceremoniously raising and lowering our national flag in the meantime?
Ms. Jeffrey?
Through you, Mayor Finch. Yeah, so I I don't foresee the municipal flag creation to truly slow it down. I do think that council and the community would love to have the community flagpole, you know, up and available for use as soon as possible. So truly, it's a council decision as to whether we keep the Canada flag there, lower it and raise it when needed, when you know, community flag requests are received, and then once the municipal flag is created and able to fly, then at that point we can switch it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that.
Councillor Oak?
Yeah, just one question on the community flag. I guess my only concern, and I like the idea of the community flag, but I don't want us to lose our logo. And I don't want it to get confused with, we've got a new logo based on our community flag sort of thing. So that's my, you know, my only comment would be, you know, maybe we start with our logo on the flag and as the flag and leave it as simple as that right at the moment, so that we could move forward quicker. And if down the road something changes, we could design something else or whatever. But I just think, you know, we do have everything is logoed with our now, why change that right at the moment in light of the speed of wanting to move forward with this? So just a comment.
Ms. Jeffrey, comments in response to that?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Finch. So truly, yes, I mean, we can use the municipal logo that we do have. The intent of a community flag is more to represent the community as a whole. So it's really about representing South Huron. Often logos aren't on those flags. They are, you know, only a few colors and have, you know, a few design elements to them. So, but definitely we could, for the time being, if council wishes, we could use the municipal logo that we do have on a flag. Flag design and printing of a new flag truly isn't that costly. It's a few $100s. So if council wishes, we could go that route as well, as to, you know, fly that logo first and then explore more about community flag. And I can also provide council with examples, what community flags look like and what elements are within a community flag.
Thank you. Mr. Neeb, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I think too, like I looked at a number of other municipalities and their flags are distinct from their logos, just in terms of the 5 principles of flag design and that. I'm more interested in the public engagement process and getting the community involved in the process, and maybe they will, you know, maybe they'd be interested in just having the logo, but there's a lot to take into consideration. We have, you know, 3 different wards and a diverse population. I think it'd be kind of interesting to see what could come out of a public engagement process and some ideas at the end. It's exciting, I think, to have something that the community can kind of rally around and identify with, and maybe it also can represent different aspects of our municipality. And there's different logos and designs within our municipal logo that could be implemented and used as well. So I think it's pretty exciting.
Great. And then Councillor Oak, go ahead, please.
Yeah, and I agree with Councillor Neeb. I just think to keep the ball rolling, to move a little quicker, because I don't want to rush the public engagement, as we've seen how that could go off rails real quick. We want to make sure that this is done with you know, a lot of thought behind it, sort of thing. So that's, I just thought if we want to start moving forward on this quicker, that might be a simpler version to do until such time as things change. Just a comment.
Any other comments from members of council? Councillor Dietrich, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I understood this right, this is for our municipal flag. So how many other flags is going to be attached to that pole eventually?
Mr. Jeffrey, do you want to explain? It's just the one flag at a time.
Just
go
one at
ahead.
a time, but there
Yeah, go
could
ahead,
be,
Ms. Jeffrey. And turn your mic off, Milt.
Through you, Mayor Finch. Yeah, so there is only one flag flown on each flagpole. In terms of if you're wondering about how many times we will have to lower and change a flag due to requests, I guess that's, you know, truly up to the community and the groups that are requesting the changes. Once we roll this out, we will obviously have a better idea as to what groups are wanting to, you know, proudly fly their flag on the community flagpole.
Thank you very much. Is there any other comments? I've got a comment. Oh, go ahead, Councillor Vaughn.
Yes, actually, two comments. Councillor Oak's suggestion to move things along in terms of use our logo. I like that idea. I like that idea from the perspective of this already is a very solid piece of our brand. It's recognizable. So I think there's some value in using our logo, our brand today on a flag. That's just a comment. The other is more a question on what was content in the actual policy, where we are saying that a community requested flag would get 2 weeks of flying time, if you will. And I'm just wondering where the 2 weeks came from. Some community groups have asked for a month's worth of recognition. And so I'm just wondering why we put 2 weeks down.
Ms. Jeffrey?
Through you, Mayor Finch. So in keeping with the flag lowering policy that this draft came from, we kept the 2 weeks, and upon review of other municipal flag, corporate flag policies that are recently approved by other jurisdictions. Some of them were actually only a week. A lot of them were 2 weeks. I did not come across any flag policies that were for an entire month. And I think the reasoning for that is there are many celebrations or commemorations that do fall within the same month. So then you are limiting the number of groups that actually can utilize that pole. And within this policy, it is first come, first served. So to keep in fairness, we thought 2 weeks was a good time. Whether council would like, whether the community groups would like approval if no other requests are received by council, I mean, that can be a request as well.
Okay. Any other comments? Councillor Dietrich, go ahead, please.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. Who has the final say on what flag was up when or whatever? Like a committee might ask for one, but did anybody ask for anything or whatever?
Ms. Jeffrey?
So through you, Mayor Finch, within the policy, it does outline, you know, which flags are to be approved and which aren't. You can read that in the policy, but ultimately the clerk has the authority to approve or deny requests, and then community groups can also appeal that request and bring that to council. So section 6.3 does outline requests that will not be approved. So you can review that as well.
Councillor Denby, go ahead, please.
Have we given any consideration to like multiple flagpoles and consideration to always have the Canada flag flown or always having the municipality flown and then having one community pole? That way, you know, we're not, the municipality flag's never flown or the Canada flag's never flown because we have 26 people in a year ask for the flag. So is there anything to make sure that we have our representation there, not just the community representation?
Ms. Jeffrey, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Finch. So right now the Parkett flagpole that was recommended, potentially there could be a second flagpole installed at that location as well, if that's the route the council wishes to go. truly the idea for the municipal flag was to kind of fill the gap. So there was at least something flying during the times that community flags aren't requested to be flown. So it's just more to a way to fill the gap so that flagpole isn't sitting empty. Alternatively, if let's just say there's a period of throughout the year that flags aren't being flown, or sorry, a flag is flown for a long period of time, then obviously we would have to make sure the condition is right. So it's more of just a way for us to monitor it and maintain that the quality of the flag as well.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, I'd like to speak to this. I think it's a great idea, so stand, Jim. I want to thank staff for their attention to this amended flag policy. Good job, Stacy. Well done. I think it's exactly what we need to be more inclusive, and symbols do matter. And since we are the government closest to the people are very diverse and not one size fits all. The only change I would suggest is under 6.2a, where it states that requests must be received no less than 30 business days prior to the date requested. I would suggest adding, however, the clerk may use their discretion to approve of less than 30 days. Both flag request forms actually state a flag lowering request should be submitted 4 weeks in advance of your required date. And the wording of must, should, and may all have specific meanings. But I would like the clerk to have the flexibility in order to carry out the intent of the policy, as the current policy wording does make it a hard and fast rule. I feel this could lead to a group missing an otherwise legitimate opportunity. This policy will provide yet another component for South Huron to be more reflective of the needs of all residents and actually engage the public to be a part of the process. By supplying their own flag, it shows the personal commitment of every group who are proud of their specific cause. When this was first brought forward, it was contemplated that to have 2 flag poles in the parkette, one for a Canada flag and one for a community pole. And the report shows the reason for one pole, and I concur with the thought process related in the report. So well done again. I think we can make the slight change in the wording as mentioned without an amendment, but we'll leave that up to the expertise of our CAO. Otherwise, I'm looking forward to engaging the community and celebrating the many organizations and diversity in South Huron. Thank you very much again, Stacy. Well done. Are there any other comments? If not, we have a mover and a seconder. Let's call a question. All in favor? That carries a 7. Thank you very much, everyone. And thank you again, Stacy. Well done. Okay, moving right along. 9.4.2.
But South Huron Council received the report of Scott Curry, Manager of Communications and Strategic Initiatives regarding Modernization Strategy 2023 update for information.
And do we have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Neeb, second by Councillor Oak. Any discussion? Councillor Neeb, go ahead, please, and welcome, Mr. Curry.
Thank you, Mary Finch, through the chair. Thank you very much, Scott, for the report, and thank you for your work on the modernization strategy. There's definitely a lot going on in the world of IT. I also wanted to congratulate you and your team on the work with the search function for the cemetery and allowing members of the public to be able to search for different cemetery records. I think that's a fantastic idea, and yeah, so thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other comments for Mr. Curry? Mr. Oak, go ahead, please.
Yes, thanks. I echo Councillor Neeb's comments on the cemetery search and all the work that's being done and the training that you've sent out to do. It always jogs my memory of what I need to be doing or changing sort of thing. So thanks for sending that cybersecurity training out as well. So thank you.
Mr. Curry, you have a comment.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Finch, and through you to councillors. Thank you very much for the recognition. It is a team effort. For example, Ms. Wolf is responsible for the cemetery search function, and she works very hard on that tool. And notwithstanding tonight's audio issues in the council, we are making great progress and great strides in our modernization of our little shop here. So congratulations is deserved to go to the entire team, South Huron. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any comments at all from any other members of council? Okay, not seeing. Thanks again, Mr. Curry. Well done. And we have a mover and a seconder. There's no further discussion. I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries a 7. Terrific. Thank you very much. Moving right along, 9.4.3.
That South Huron Council receives a report from Jay Warwick, Director of Financial Services Treasurer, REIT 2023 second quarter operating budget variance report.
And do we have a mover, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Denemy. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That carries a 7. 9.4.4.
That South Huron Council receives the report from Julia Warwick, Director of Financial Services Treasurer, and Kate Farwell, Manager of Revenue and Taxation, Deputy Treasurer. Read bylaw to delegate council authority pursuant to sections 354, 357, 358, and 359, and section 356 of the Municipal Act, SO 2001. That a bylaw to delegate council's authority to the municipal treasurer or their designate to cancel, reduce, refund, or increase taxes in accordance with sections 354, 357, 358, 359 of the Municipal Act, and apportion unpaid taxes accordingly under section 356 of the Municipal Act be approved. And that the bylaw contain a standard percentage reduction of 100% of the affected area to be applied to quantitative data provided by the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, MPAC, in accordance with section 357 1G, and that said percentage reduction be reviewed and if necessary revised during each term of council, and that the bylaw in accordance with section 357.11 of the Municipal Act 2001 delegate council's authority under subsection 357.1 and 5 to the Assessment Review Board, ARB, relating to subsection 357.1D.1.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Oak, seconded by Councillor Denemy. Any discussion? Oh, Councillor Oak.
Yeah, just a clarification. This is, so this is a new recommendation, but it's process that we've been doing already. It's just putting a formalization to this. Is that how I'm reading that? And there's Kate.
Welcome, Kate. Did you want to respond to that?
Through the chair, yes, you're correct, Councillor Oak, and that it is a formalization of our current process.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for Kate? Okay. We have a mover and a seconder. Thank you very much for your time there, Kate. Well done. If there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries a 7. Thank you. Nine 9.4.5 and Mr. Neve, thank you very much. Excusing yourself.
That South Huron Council receives a report from Alex Wolf, Deputy Clerk, reappoint engineer, new municipal drain, Ford Neeb. And that South Huron Council hereby appoints William J. Dietrich, PN, from Dietrich Engineering Limited as a municipal drainage engineer to prepare a report for the construction of a new municipal drain and instruct him to include the proposed new drainage construction as set out in the petition for drainage works to the municipal drainage project report for the new municipal drain, Ford Neeb.
And a mover, please. Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Dietrich. Dietrich and Dietrich here. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries a 6. Thank you very much. And we welcome Mr. Neeb back. And we move on to 9.4.6.
That the memo of R.M. Zuya Collison, Acting Chief Administrative Officer Clerk, Reed Ashwood Community Fund Committee, revisions to terms of reference be received, and that the revised terms of reference be approved as presented, and that recruitment of the committee is initiated and conducted as per committee recruitment policy, and the selection panel be comprised of the Talent and Workforce Manager and the following 2 members of council.
Okay.
We have volunteers.
Who wants to be volunteered? I mean, who wants to volunteer? How did I say that? Deputy Mayor, thank you for volunteering. The ward reps.
Counselor Vaughn can't be on the selection committee because she's on the committee.
Thanks for volunteering, Jim. Well done. Thanks for volunteering, Deputy Mayor. We appreciate it.
So
And
Deputy Mayor
yeah, and
and Counselor Dietrich.
Counselor Dietrich. That's a good team right there. Okay, good. So we have those two names, the Deputy Mayor and Counselor Dietrich. We have a mover, please. Counselor Denemy, thank you. Seconded by Counselor Neeb. Appreciate that. Any discussion? Counselor Oak.
Yeah, just a clarification on the purpose of the funds. I guess, there's definitely some projects that are being talked about for the Dashwood area. I guess I'm just wondering down the road if something ever was to move forward with a Dashwood Fire Hall or a fire hall in that area, would those funds be eligible for that purpose as well?
Ms. Masuda Carlson, comment.
The way this is written right now, it's for any recreation cultural project within the village of Dashwood. So the committee itself would not necessarily be able to recommend that to council. That would have to be likely a council discussion point at that point.
Okay, any other questions then? Okay, if there's no further discussion, call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 6. Thank you very much. Okay, very well. Moving right along. 9.4.7.
The South Huron Council receives a report of Rebecca Msuya-Collison, Acting Chief Administrative Officer Clerk, Re-Exeter Lawn Bowling Club Memorandum of Understanding, and that council approved the Memorandum of Understanding with the Exeter Lawn Bowling Club as presented, and that the necessary bylaw be forwarded to council for the required 3 readings.
And a mover, please. Moved by Counselor Neeb, second by Counselor Denemy. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you very much. 9.4.8, I believe.
That the memo of Rebecca Msuya-Collison, Acting Chief Administrative Officer Clerk, titled Council Priority Update, be received.
And a mover, please. Moved by Counselor Neeb, seconded by Counselor Vaughn. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. Bring along, we go on to our notice of motion. Ms. Masuda-Collison, are there any notices of motion you're aware of?
There are none.
11.1, Ms. Masuda-Collison, any comments to that or any questions from members of council? Counselor Oak, go ahead.
Just a comment. I noticed our neighbors to the south, Luke and Badolf, had the same presentation, and they went to the residents with a survey to see what kind of interest they had in something like this. I wonder if that would be something that we could possibly do to see what kind of potential interest there is. The more we can divert from the landfill, the better. And I'm not sure where BRA is going with, at one time they talked about a green bin program. But anyways, I'm just throwing out the idea that it's public engagement is never a bad thing to see what kind of interest there might be in something like this. That's just my comments.
Ms. Masuda-Collison, do you have a comment?
We did speak to Francis at the BRA about this, and he thought it was mostly for larger cities and apartment buildings. He did provide that there is a green bin program already through the association for approximately $43 a year, and or residents could buy similar devices. And the other thing that you noted too, Councillor Oak, is that the BRA is in the midst of a transition. We all are. He kind of cautioned maybe to wait until after that all happens, and then maybe look at a possible program.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, Councillor Neeb, go ahead.
No, and thank you for that. I just to echo some of Councillor Oak's comments, anything we can do to divert waste from our landfills, and we need to be proactive about how we go about that. So it's good that we're in contact with the BRA, and we're looking at different options. So thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. If there's nothing else, okay, moving right along to 12.1, Ms. Masuda-Collison.
The South Huron Council sets special council meetings for budget purposes from 4 PM to 7 PM on the following dates: September 25th, 2023, October 23rd, 2023, November 27th, 2023, and December 6th, 2023, if required.
And a mover, please. Moved by Counselor Denamy, second by Counselor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. Mayor and Counselor, comments and announcements. Are there any at this point? Maybe turn to Deputy Mayor for our weekend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A very successful weekend. Unbelievable the amount of people that were there. Stands were full. We brought in, I think it was 450 more seating areas than we ever had before. It's just, I can't say enough about the committee. Excellent. Everything just seemed to fall into place. Our staff, whatever we asked for, they were there to help us. Joanne Fields, unbelievable. She's the one that put this all together and excuse me, and made it work and kept on top of everything and got all our advertising and just a tremendous, I can't say enough about it. So thank you and kudos to the committee.
Thank you very much, Deputy. And again, I just want to recognize that committee. That is an amazing job. So kudos to you, Deputy, for being on that committee. And yeah, you're right, Joanne Fields and her leadership is just incredible. But that event was one of the best and biggest events I think we've had in South Huron in years. But the weather was really a big part of it, for sure. But if it wasn't for that committee, it wouldn't exist. So that's one of our main events for sure, if not the main event for South Huron, for drawing such a large crowd with so much work that goes into it. So kudos to the committee again. Yeah, thank you. Councillor Denham, you had something?
Yeah, I would just like to congratulate the rodeo committee on what sounds like all rumors around town has been nothing but success, which is great. We hope this isn't the last. And also on the Friday night, I'd like to thank the Optimists who had their free night for the youth. I know we were up there for some face painting and bouncy castle time, so that was perfect. And that on Saturday night, I was able to attend the Exeter Lions Golf Scramble, which we saw $18,000 donated locally here between Jessica's House, the Tanner Steffler Foundation, and some Lions youth programs.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Neeb, go ahead.
Yeah, it was a busy weekend in town and in the area too. I took my 3-year-old son to the rodeo, and you know how it is with young children. Sometimes you know, you're there for an hour and then they're done. Well, after taking off after an hour, it was so good. My son wanted to go back, so we visited the rodeo twice and saw all the horses and saw all of the different the stands. It was packed. It was fantastic to see that in town. We actually had to park over by the high school because there was just no parking left. So that's outstanding to see happen in our community. That same day there was a multicultural festival held in McNaughton Park too. So after Henry got tired of the horses, we headed over to the multicultural festival, and there were a number of musicians. There were Ukrainian pierogies. A lot of newcomers to the community were there, so it was really exciting to be a part of it. There was a Jamaican band that played Country Roads, which I highly recommend hearing a Jamaican version of Country Roads. It was awesome. And one of the things that you know, I'm grateful for in this community is that we had the pool, splash pad, and the park, as well as the pavilion, and it was a very happening place in the park, as well as what was going on down with the rodeo. So we have a lot of great recreational spaces and infrastructure and volunteers that have kind of built up some really nice areas and really nice events. So thank you to the rodeo committee for their work. I know putting on an event is a big deal, and also thank you to Giza from the Huron Perth Multicultural Association for putting on a little festival in the park.
For sure. Counselor Oak, go ahead.
Yeah, and also on the weekend was the Kirkton Optimist ball tournament, and they had a great turnout of teams, and the pool committee ran the food booth and raised a number of funds for the pool. So it was another great event in the east part of the municipality. So.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and I was at the rodeo, of course, and the Multicultural Association with Mr. Neeb there. And again, thanks to Giza, Dr. Giza Wardorfa for putting that on. It's great to see a lot of people in South Huron. It was very vibrant everywhere you went. There's a lot of smiling people, and again, people from all across South Huron were there. Some people from Grand Bend at the rodeo. So again, kudos to that weekend for sure. If there's nothing else, we can move right along. Let me think here. Yeah, communications. Ms. Masula Carlson, will read the vote. If you want something pulled, please say pull.
14.1.
Pull.
14.2. 14.3. 14.4. 14.5.
Pull.
14.6.
Pull.
14.7. 14.8. 14.9. 14.10. 14.11. 14.12. 14.13. 14.14. 14.15. 14.16.1 and 0.2.
So we'll go to 14.1. Sorry, Counselor Neeb, go ahead. I'm just have my mic off. Go ahead, please.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor Finch. Just a question for the chair of the Police Services Board. And it's great to hear about the approval from the Solicitor General about the proposal for the Huron Detachment Board. I was wondering if the deputy be able to explain what some of the next steps would be in terms of like how it's populated, the detachment board, and what kind of processes we'll have to go through.
Deputy, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, there is 6 council members that are going to be on. I think it's already been decided which one is going to have a seat on there, which municipality, sorry, out of the 9. There's 2 provincial reps going to be appointed. We have no idea whether they're already here or whether they have to start over. We don't know where that is. Community reps are the same, and I'm thinking that'll be up to the first board that's picked to decide what representatives they really want on for the community rep and the provincial rep. So it's going to be probably a 6-month process after this is done. Maybe longer, but we're hoping 6 months we'll do it. And by the time they get to training, and anybody that doesn't have training, there's a lot of training that has to be done. So I think that's the next process. They're saying late fall, but I'm looking at early 2024 from what we're hearing. So that's about all that I have for right now. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Nope, thank you very much.
Okay, and move right along to 14.4. Deputy, do you have, or Counselor Denby, go ahead, please.
Yeah, essentially, I think this is a great idea. I think I'd like to see staff give a letter of support for the Exeter Lawn Bowling Club so they can get a chance at this grant application for some reconstruction and make it more accessible for our community.
Great. Do you need a motion?
Yes, we could have a motion moved by Counselor Denemy.
Second by Counselor Neeb. Any discussion? Call a question, all in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. 14.5, Counselor Oak, I believe.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. I'd like to make a recommendation that we give this exemption.
Very well, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Any discussion? Councillor Vaughn, go ahead, please.
Yes, I just have one question that Councillor Oak may or may not know the answer to. I'm just wondering, they're asking for the exemption from 11 to 1, fireworks being stated as one of the reasons. Are they actually thinking about lighting off fireworks at 11 o'clock at night?
Councillor Oak, would you have that answer?
So they on the one night is the fireworks, the Friday night. And so I'm not sure on that, but the tractor pull on the Saturday night can go until midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning with all the classes by the time they get to the end. So I'm not exactly sure on, you know, the fireworks on the Friday night. They do have some music on the Friday night too, some entertainment like a talent show and stuff that goes for a while. So I'm not sure on the Friday night what's going on for the one night, but I do know the tractor pull does go until the early hours of the Saturday night.
Councillor Vaughn, we follow up?
Yes, and I can certainly appreciate that those events might go on. The fireworks, I'm just wondering if there's something that staff can do in terms of talking to this federation about fireworks, because very music droning on in the background is one thing in terms of how that affects people and animals. Pop, pop, pop fireworks at later in the night, pretty big havoc on young families trying to get kids to bed, and also animals, particularly the domestic type, like dogs. There's a lot of people who really people and animals who can't handle that pop, pop, pop of fireworks. And so it's going to be dark well before 11 o'clock. And I'm just wondering if there can be some thinking around how late you really want to light those suckers off.
Ms. Masuda Carlson?
I could take that one through you, Mayor Finch. Our fire chief, he'll be working with them for to actually do the permit piece. We can also connect with Perth South. They're doing everything else as far as the special event for this particular event, other than the noise exemption. So we will look into that.
So you need a resolution, I take it, for this?
We have a mover and a seconder already for the exemption to the noise bylaw.
Okay, so if there's no further discussion, call the question, all in favor? And that carries a 7. Thank you very much. And 14.6, Mr. Neeb.
Yep, thank you, Mayor Finch. This is a request to utilize the parking lot of the town hall for a fundraiser. I think it's a great idea. We already do it for the farmers market, which would be the next week. So I guess through the mayor, do we need a resolution as well?
Ms. Masuda Carlson?
Through you, Mayor Finch. Yes, just for the staff resources, not really for the parking lot as much.
Okay.
As the staff.
The staff, okay.
Great.
So I'll make that motion. Yep.
So moved, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Any further discussion? Call the question, all in favor? And that carries a 7. Thank you. Moving right along, 14.8. So I've asked to have that pulled. I wonder if we could just send a letter of support for this. It would go to the MTO, and perhaps Luca Badolf, I believe, would have to be in support of that too. Ms. Masuda Carlson, your comments, please.
We can do that because the MTO is responsible for that, for the improvements, and then we can copy it as well.
Very well, and I don't want to leave the chair with somebody, Deputy, or sorry, Councillor, go ahead.
It wouldn't be Lucan Badolf, it would be Middlesex County. They're responsible for that road now. And MTO oversees that intersection, but yeah, not Lucan Badolf. I guess you could send it to Lucan Badolf for their information, but it's Middlesex County that actually has that side of the road right at the moment. So
Yeah, and that was my intent to send to that authority. Yes. Would you make that move, motion? Okay, so moved by Counselor Oak, seconder, please. Counselor Neeb, any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. Okay, moving right along, we'll go to our recommendation. Ms. Masul Carlson.
That South Huron Council receive communication items not otherwise dealt with.
A mover, please. Deputy Mayor, seconded by Counselor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? And that carries with 6. Thank you very much. Okay, now we're going to closed session. Ms. Masul Carlson.
That South Huron Council proceeds in closed session at 8:10 PM for the purpose of addressing litigation or potential litigation matters in accordance with subsection 239(2)C of the Municipal Act for a zoning bylaw enforcement matter, W04290, and that acting CAO clerk and deputy clerk remain in attendance.
And a mover, please. Moved by Counselor Oak, seconded by Counselor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you very much. Welcome back. It's 8:46 PM and reporting out of session, into open session now. Council met in closed session to consider matters it is permitted to do so under the Municipal Act and as listed on today's council. The following items were considered during the closed session: litigation or potential litigation matters and the minutes of July 17th, 2023. And as a result of our closed session today, the closed meeting minutes of July 17th, 2023 have been approved, and the following resolution will be considered by council in open session. The staff be directed to proceed with option for council consideration number 2 as amended. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor Denby, seconded by Councillor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. Moving right along, bylaw 17.1, please.
That South Huron Council gives first, second, third, and final reading to bylaw 41, 2023, being a bylaw to exempt certain lands from part lot control and registered plan 376, being all of lot 1325 and part lot 1326, being part 1 to 12, 22R 7230 on a street legally named Simcoe Street in the Exeter Ward, Municipality of South Huron, County of Huron.
And is there a mover, please? Councillor Denby, second by Councillor Oak. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? That carries with 7. Thank you. 17.2.
That South Huron Council gives first, second, third, and final reading to bylaw 42, 2023, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 69, 2018 of the Municipality of South Huron for lands described as part lot 4, plan 211, Stephen Ward, Municipality of South Huron.
And do we have a mover, please? Councillor Denby, seconded by Councillor Dietrich. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? That carries with 7. Thank you. 17.3.
That South Huron Council gives first, second, third, and final reading to bylaw 43, 2023, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a consent agreement between the Corporation of the Municipality of South Huron and Thomas Louis Trebner and Noella Maxine Trebner in the Municipality of South Huron in the County of Huron.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Dietrich, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? And that carries with 7. Sorry, Mark, did you raise? Yep, 7. Thank you. 17.4, please.
That South Huron Council gives first, second, third, and final reading to bylaw of 44, 2023, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a site plan agreement between the Corporation of the Municipality of South Huron and Southbridge in the Municipality of South Huron in the County of Huron.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Vaughn, seconded by Councillor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? And that carries with 6. Thank you. Next one, please.
That South Huron Council gives first, second, third, and final reading to bylaw 45, 2023, being a bylaw to deem lots 34, 35, and 36 of Plan 126 not to be part of a registered plan of subdivision.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Vaughn, seconded by Councillor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? That carries with 7. Thank you. Next, please.
That South Huron Council gives first, second, third, and final reading to bylaw 46, 2023, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 62, 2022 to provide for a collection of actual costs for construction of the Pickering Municipal Drain 2022.
And a mover, please. Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. Next one, please.
This next one is to appoint our acting clerk, Alex Wolf. That South Huron Council gives first, second, and third, and final reading to bylaw 47, 2023, being a bylaw to appoint an acting clerk.
A mover, please. Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question. Oh, Councillor Neeb, go ahead.
Congratulations.
Yes, and congratulations. And I'll call the question, all in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you very much. You know what? Now get up here. Come on up here. You're having a spot right here.
Change, if you sit right
Play musical chairs for a minute. Okay, very good. Go ahead, Ms. Masua Carlson.
That South Huron Council gives first, second, third, and final reading to bylaw 48, 2023, being a bylaw to appoint chief administrative officer, deputy clerk.
We have a mover, Counselor Denemy, seconded by Counselor Oak. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Congratulations. Okay, 18.
The South Huron Council gives first, second, third, and final reading to bylaw 49, 2023, being a bylaw to confirm matters addressed at the July 10th, 2023 and August 14th, 2023 council meeting.
And a mover, please. Counselor Neeb, seconded by Counselor Vaughn. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 6-7. Thank you. Ms. Masua Collison.
The South Huron Council hereby adjourns at 8:52 PM to meet again on September 5th, 2023 at 6 PM or at the call of the chair.
Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Counselor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries us 6. Thank you very much. And you know what? I think we need a picture.